lot of people can't take a step back and look at the moment and be like, all right, what did I learn from this? Or what can I take from this so this doesn't happen again? Or so this does happen again because it was a successful moment. Like it works both ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing where it's a teaching moment. There's a lot of positive things that happen to people that people they're celebrating and they forget to take time and step back and like, what did I do here to make this outcome happen? And how do I continue this outcome? It works both ways. So many people forget, and they get caught up in the moment. They, or they don't want to face those demons, or they think it's luck or it was a fluke and they don't think they can do it again. They have this self-doubt. There's so many scenarios that play in my head when you think of those things that you're talking about. But what you said is very important. You got to take a step back. You got to look at the situation for what it is and face it, whether it's good or bad, and take a learning thing from it, whether it's one thing, two things, or a ton of things that you learn from that experience. You can learn from anything that you're doing. The thing that's actually, Joshua, the thing that's actually helped me the most with my ADD and my focus and my attention are microdoses. That has been the biggest game changer in my life that I wish I had at a younger age, because I call it the limitless pill. So just like you, where you'll start a sentence and midway through, you're like, oh, fuck, what was I saying? I do it all the time. I do it all of the time. Or someone says something and it triggers a memory and it's like at the tip of your tongue, but you can't get it out. You're like, what the fuck am I trying to say? You know, that feeling happens to me all of the time. And I was given these microdoses. So you don't trip. There's no psychoactive feeling to it, but it helps with my cognitive function. I call it the limitless pill. Like those times where things are at the tip of my tongue, it's right there in the front of my brain to pick up and say. I don't forget what I was saying all of the time. My ADD, I'm a lot more focused. I'm not like all over the place. Like oh, there's a squirrel. Oh, there's a fucking squirrel. You know what I'm saying? Like it's really helped me big time, and it's made with 0.02 of psilocybin, so a very little amount of psilocybin. It's made with lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, and a couple other cognitive function mushrooms, and it's been a total game changer for my cognitive function and my retardation, because I really struggled with it my entire life. Like my reading comprehension, like I don't know about you, when I read something, I like to read, but when I read something, I'll read the page and I'll be so focused on trying to read that I won't comprehend what I'm actually reading, and I'll have to. Well,
I was gonna actually compliment what you're saying, as in like compliment. Like I know exactly what that means. I'll put it when I was in ninth grade, we took the Iowa readings or Iowa basic skills test. I don't know if you ever had to do that.
No,
it tells you compared to what other people your age, your grade are in. And so I took the reading test, and ninth grade, I scored as a sixth grader, my reading skills, because I couldn't finish anything. I didn't finish the test, but
that's how it was for SATs for me. Yeah.
My writing skill was that of a seventh year, second semester college student in ninth grade. So I wasn't an idiot. And now I read a lot, but I have to do Audible because I can rewind it and then play it back.
And this might help you, which has very much helped me. So I do a lot of audiobooks as well, but like I try to read at least 10 pages a day. Of actually like reading a book, having a hard copy of the book. But I've realized that I cannot comprehend what I'm reading, just reading the book. So I'll read along with the audiobook. So I don't have to focus so much on reading the words. I can listen to the words as I'm reading along, and it helps it stick a lot better for me. And helps me retain the information. I think we froze again. Oh no, there we go. It froze. You did freeze, and then it's the camera sped up for you to catch up. It was funny. But I started doing that, and it helps me drastically with my reading and my comprehension, because I have a very hard, and it's something that I have a lot of insecurities about. Like I don't like tweeting because I'm not good with grammar and writing, and I'm not good with reading. Like it's not my strength. Yeah. But I get into it because I have to, you know. But those types of techniques helped me bigly. And I'm very thankful for my parents. My parents are great. They're fantastic. Like we said at the top of the show, I'm very, very blessed. And we have tons and tons of differences, but I remember being in high school, getting into arguments with my parents. Like I'm really struggling with focusing. I'm really struggling understanding and comprehending what I'm reading. Like, I don't know why. Like you can sit me in a room and lock me in a room and have me do these things. It's not going to work. Like, you've tried this over and over again. Like, I was the kid that when I got home, my parents would put me in my room and I'd have to do my homework before I could go out and do anything. And I had such a hard time focusing doing my homework that I'd be in my room until 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I wouldn't have accomplished anything because I'm literally playing fingerboards with my pencil, and like like I have no TV in my room, I have no video game, no computer, no form of entertainment whatsoever, and all I have to do is finish my work, and I could go do whatever the fuck I want, and I couldn't do it. Like I just couldn't sit down and do it. I had to be moving around and doing things all of the time. And if you watch me on my show, or even today, I'm constantly moving around or touching things. I have a hard time looking at the camera. All of the things that you mentioned, you have a hard time doing. It resonates with me very, very much so. And I begged my parents. I was like, get me tested for ADHD. Like, get me tested. Get me. Like, I truly think I have this issue. And they refused to do it. They were like, no, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. I'm so thankful that they did, because they would have put me on medication. They would have put me on Ritalin or Adderall. And I'm so thankful that my parents said no, even though it would have helped me with my SATs. I would have had in limited time. I would have been able to test higher. I wouldn't have went to college anyway. I dropped out of college anyway. It wouldn't have mattered. But at the time, I understood my issues, and my parents weren't hearing me, and they were stopping me from doing it. And I'm very thankful that they did. But I got diagnosed as an adult when I was 22 years old with adult ADHD.
I think the best thing that ever happened to me is something that I complain about. Like you said, I wasn't diagnosed with anything. I didn't get any help.
Nope.
I got in trouble. You would think there would be an issue. Now, I do wish they would have at least got me like counseling or something for what I dealt with, because it wasn't until I got in 9th grade that I ever started making passing grades. I should have flunked every single school, but I didn't get bad tests. I always aced tests. It was just I didn't do schoolwork or anything. But when I got into high school, I started getting good grades and stuff. But they didn't ever. It didn't matter what was wrong with me. If I would have got diagnosed with Asperger's at that age, it would have been a crutch. And that's what's wrong.
Oh, for sure.
Because I have friends that talk to me and they're like, hey, I think our kids are autistic, or our child is autistic. What do you think? I was like, well, don't tell them. I'm like, just don't.
Treat them as if they're normal. Yeah,
exactly. I was like, keep it in the back of your mind, but learn how to work with it. Don't sit there and try to use it as an excuse for why you can't do this. Why you can. I sucked at communication, and here I have a podcast. I mean,
and you're crushing.
Sucked at talking to people, but I forced myself. But it was because I was older that I learned about it, that I had it. And I'm a very curious person. I wanted to know more about it. So I started reading books and just researching. Then I started looking at famous people that have it. You got Steve Jobs, you got Dan Aykroyd, you got Robin Williams. They even believe that Einstein had it, but that was, of course, before they described. But describing him, psychologists have described him like, well, he fits everything,
before Asperger's existed.
They didn't have a term for it. But, so I know that I said, well, what's the difference between them and people now that get diagnosed with it? Because now if I meet somebody that has Asperger's or autistic, they usually they annoy the piss out of me. They're very antisocial. They're usually in IT or something. They're usually assholes. And it's because it was a crutch to them, so they didn't have to change. They still live with their parents because they have this disability. And I'm like, it's a communication order where we can't describe our emotions and our thoughts perfectly. And a lot of times we don't understand the emotions we're feeling, and people used to think that, and people still will say that, well, when you're people with Asperger's and autism, they lack empathy. I was like, the complete opposite. We have extreme empathy. The problem is that we don't know how to express it. how to, I constantly apologize to my wife because I don't know how to express love. I'm not that good at it. I don't know how to keep a connection with people. You have to be that type of
yep.
person. Because like we've talked to each other like what, once a year. That's the way I am with people. It's just
I'm the same way.
I had to learn to make sure that when I talk to somebody, it's not because I need something. I have to, because it'll start coming off like the only reason I have them around is because I need something from them. And I know that's a bad thing. And I don't think I need anything from anybody.
Yeah, it's like you're every time you're reaching out to them, it's because like, oh, a favor that you needed to get done, and that you know that they can help you out, kind of thing. And
as a law enforcement, well, I was going to say as a cop, that's what people would do. And when I stood up and said, I'm not going to do that, they quit talking to me. Of
course,
because I was a cop, and that's all they wanted me for. And I realized I had no friends, when I was a cop. Because, I had a couple of them and they were in that field. One was a cop and one was a firefighter, and because they understood, but everybody else, it's like they just wanted something from me. And I don't like being that guy. I have friends with a lot of money, and I make sure I never ask for money from them at all. I never, even bring finances up to them, because I don't want them thinking that that's why I'm friends with them. I'm friends with 100%. Them because I get their heart, and I get that. And
those are good people.
Yeah, they're good people. And I do want to be friends with people that are successful, because you are who you hang out with.
1000%. If all of your friends are broke, if your 5 friends are broke, you're the 6th. If all your 5 friends are successful, you're the 6th.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
And so, a lot of growing and having issues. I don't believe in, it's funny. The hardest thing to do ever is forgive people. Especially if they didn't do anything to change it. They didn't change what they are, who they are. They didn't take accountability. Mm-hmm. It's like, how do you forgive that? And when I became a Christian, and of course I like to use that word loosely now, because I almost don't want to call myself that, because I've met so many that contradict what I believe a Christian is. And I don't want to be associated with that.
I have the same issue. I consider myself just a faithful follower of God.
Yeah. I believe in God. I love Jesus's teachings.
Yep.
But they would always tell me, well, you got to forgive because Jesus forgave you. I'm like, what? I was like, I'm not Jesus, and I'm not God. So I don't get that. But then it occurred to me, because I'm a very spiritual person, and the type that a lot of Christians hate. Because I believe in the soul and being able to speak to souls and stuff like that.
And spirit of human being. Yeah.
I believe in that.
Like if you believe in heaven and we go to heaven, what do you think goes up to heaven? Your physical body is still here on earth. Yeah. What do you think goes?
Oh, I irritated some because I said you're not supposed to speak to the dead. I was like, well, you're not, because your soul doesn't die. Your body does. So as long as you're not speaking to a dead body, you're not speaking to the dead. That irritated them. They said that's not the way it works. I'm like, okay, whatever. I forgot,
because you know how it works.
Yeah, you make the rules. But regardless, they tell me that, and I said, and it occurred to me, because I thought about the meaning of life since the day I was born. And I've always wondered, and it came down to it. I remember in high school figuring out the meaning of life. I know that sounds very arrogant, but
it's a thought I have all the time.
Nobody could prove me wrong. And it's a twofold thing, because a meaning of life has to fit everybody. Well, how do you do that? We're all so different. Well, because the meaning of life is learning and love. Them two things. We're here to learn. Everything is a learning experience. You may think it's the most horrible thing, but have you ever grabbed something out of the boiling water with your hands, bare hands?
No.
Well, you've seen people do it though, right?
Yeah, idiots.
Yeah, but they do it, but they don't even get hurt. Have you ever had to? Well, you've worked out. You've gone in a gym and got punched in the face.
Many times.
Exactly.
I mean, I've had teeth kicked out of my face.
You knew it was a temporary hell for what you were going to get, right? And it was worth it.
Oh, absolutely. It was.
It's the same thing with boiling water. If you're grabbing something, you know that you'll be able to grab it quick. It may be hot for a split second. Well, time is eternal.
You were saying time is eternal.
Yeah, time is eternal. So that means our 80 years here on Earth is not even a blink of an eye, right? If you think in the grand scheme of things, no matter how horrible anything is, if our souls are eternal and time is eternal, is it really that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things? No matter what happened, even we'll take the Holocaust, as horrible as it is. How many lessons came out of the Holocaust? How many life-changing events? Hell, we even look at it now. We call people Nazis.
Everybody's a Nazi now.
It means that we're paying attention. Yeah, people have gone overboard, but it still makes us pay attention to see something happening that created the Holocaust. And we would have never done that, and the government would have more control now than it already has, because we wouldn't be aware of the signs that would create a dictator like Hitler. You see what I'm saying?
Without a doubt.
And so
Without
everything that happens for a reason. It does, like I said, it doesn't happen to you. It happens for you. So therefore, if my mom wouldn't have abandoned me when I was 8 at a neighbor's house, I would have lived with my mom until I should be graduating. I wouldn't have graduated. My mom didn't graduate high school. She didn't finish 10th grade. Neither did my dad. I don't think she even finished 9th grade, but I would have lived that life more than likely with her. Like the way she did, if she wouldn't have abandoned me. If my stepdad wouldn't have done what he did, I would have never learned them lessons, and I couldn't help people. I started this podcast because I had always told people were like, when they knew that I had a bad life, but they didn't know. I don't even like saying I have a bad life, but according to people's perspective, my childhood was bad.
Was rough.
Yeah. They say, well, how can you deal with that? Most of my brothers and sisters or in-laws are, all the ones I grew up with, my brother and my sister, and their relatives, their significant others, were into drugs and alcohol and all that other stuff. I wasn't. How did you not do that? And I'm like, because one, I think about where I am. I think about where I want to be. I think about what's going on, and I think about the lessons I learned. And I tell people, if one person hears my story and thinks I can get through this, or I don't have to deal with this, and that it makes their life better, then not only was it worth it that I went through all that, I would do it all over again. Well, I thought about that, and I'm like, wait, I'm sitting there saying that, but I don't tell anybody about what I went through. So I'm not helping anybody. All that information stuck in my head, simply because I don't like the poor me mentality. So
you don't want
yeah. And so I thought telling people this was like saying, oh, poor me. It's not. I'm not sad about it. When people say, even my wife will say, I'm sorry, because I'll tell her something like a split second. I was like, yeah, I remember this. She said, I'm sorry. And I was like, why? She said, well, because you went through it. I was like, I'm not sorry.
It happened. It is what it is.
I finally reconciled with my mother at, she was 51 years old. I think 50. I reconciled with her, and the only reason I reconciled with her was because I was on pills really heavily, and she had a lot of pills because she was dying, and I was a piece of shit because I was on pills really heavily, and so I would get pills from her, and because she wouldn't take her pills, so it wasn't like I was stealing pills. I wasn't.
No,
she
you were
give one to me, but it made it where me and her connected, and that was the last year of her life. She ends up dying. And I hadn't talked to her in like 18 years. When she borrowed my vehicle, because I reconnected with her. I didn't talk to her since I was 8. I talked to her again when I was 18, and she borrows my vehicle. Oh, sorry, I was 17. She borrows I was living on my own. I just got through I was living in my car. I just moved into a friend's house. She was an adult friend. I had 2 teenage daughters. Shouldn't have taken me in. Really sweet woman. My first introduction to church and Christianity. Never pushed God on me at all. But my mother borrowed my car, got drunk, drove it. I quit talking to her. Didn't talk to her again until I was 31. So I guess it wasn't quite 18 years, but you get the point. I do that. She dies. And then like a dickhead, I go the day before she died. I was driving through Shakota to go back to McAllister. I was living not in McAllister, but close to McAllister, but I had to drive that way. She was in Shakota. I'm from Shakota. I'm talking to her on the phone. She asked me to stop by. I say no. I had time, but I just didn't want to. And she dies that night.
Wow.
She goes to the ER. She gets life flighted to Tulsa that night. I drive up there the very next day. She's in a coma, and I decide to go to the movies with my wife, my second wife. And she ends up dying. I didn't feel bad about it at the time. And because I, again, was a piece of shit. I thought my mother deserved it. I mean, because she was trying to get a kidney transplant when I met her. And I said, why would I help her raise money for a kidney transplant? She did this to herself. Why would I do that when there's children that need kidney transplants? Why would I take it away from them? You know, it was a very pragmatic way of thinking, but it was a piece of shit way of thinking.
I don't think you're wrong either in the way you were thinking.
Yeah. But, it kills me even today that I chose not to visit her simply because I held on to everything. When now I know that if I wouldn't have had the experiences, then it wouldn't have happened. And even that experience has taught me, because now I know when somebody wants to hang out with me or something, if I have the ability to do it, I do it. When somebody wants to see me, I know not to take it for granted. I understand that if you can look at your past and understand that why it happened, it will help you in your future and help you deal with your past. But if you can learn that now, once you learn how to do that, do it in the present. If you're going through something now, try to find why you're going through it. Try to learn from it. If you can learn from it like a detective and try to figure out things instead of poor me, and this is so horrible, you will go through it and you won't have to deal with it again.
100%.
But 100%. People are too busy saying this sucks. I hate being poor. I hate, well, do something about it. I asked my wife, I'm like, notice I don't complain about things, because if I can change it, I don't complain about it because I can change it. It's like my body. I hated how, the shape of my body, I wanted to be, this perfect, I'm always trying to build my muscles up, trying to look better, be in more shape, a better shape, not more shape. That didn't even make sense. But I don't complain.
Retard alert.
Exactly.
Retard alert, class.
But I don't complain about it because I can do something about it. If I'm not doing something about it, then it's my fault. But the same thing, if I can't change it, I don't complain about it because I can't change it. So it's not going to do any good complaining about it. So there's never a reason to complain. That's why I have kind of this odd mentality about venting, because I used to not see a purpose for it until I had that episode, which again, every episode, everything teaches you something if you will let it, if you will listen.
1000%. A lot of people can't take a step back and look at the moment and be like, all right, what did I learn from this? Or what can I take from this so this doesn't happen again? Or so this does happen again because it was a successful moment. Like it works both ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing where it's a teaching moment. There's a lot of positive things that happen to people that people they're celebrating and they forget to take time and step back and like, what did I do here to make this outcome happen? And how do I continue this outcome? It works both ways. So many people forget, and they get caught up in the moment. They, or they don't want to face those demons, or they think it's luck or it was a fluke and they don't think they can do it again. They have this self-doubt. There's so many scenarios that play in my head when you think of those things that you're talking about. But what you said is very important. You got to take a step back. You got to look at the situation for what it is and face it, whether it's good or bad, and take a learning thing from it, whether it's one thing, two things, or a ton of things that you learn from that experience. You can learn from anything that you're doing. And anyone, people sell others short. And I'm very, very guilty of this myself, and especially in my past. You can even from negative conversations or debates or arguments, you can take a piece of something that somebody said and learn from it. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that you said. So many people are ego driven, they're pride driven, and when someone disagrees with them or has a conversation with them, they sometimes think that they're better, they're not smart enough. Even if you are smarter than that individual, they can still say something that it brings a teaching moment to you. You can't discredit anybody, and it's unfortunate that we live in a world like this today, where it's self-gratifying and it's people. I'm sure you see this because I see it all the time. People have conversations with people just to pat themselves on the back.
Yeah.
They talk to people just so they can be like, oh, I did this, I'm doing this all the time. Like, and they're patting themselves in the back rather than actually having a conversation or checking in on the person and how they're doing, or, hey, how's the family kind of thing. It's wild, right?
Yeah. I learned very, very quickly, through having my surgeries that, again, one of the hardest part about doing the GoFundMe was it taught me people that didn't actually care. Because again, I just ask people to share. I never ask people to donate directly. Now, obviously I'm passing the GoFundMe, so I want people to donate. But when I'm talking to, like if I talk to you, I'm saying, hey, would you mind sharing this GoFundMe? I never say, hey, James, would you mind donating to this? Because I think it puts you in an awful position, because now you feel obligated. And what if you can't? I don't know I know very wealthy people. I learned this in the car business, people that had a lot of money, but had no money to spend because
it's all tied up.
Yeah. Or they were in so much debt that they were ruining everything. So I learned people wouldn't even share it. And I learned when I had my surgery, I only had a couple of people check in on me. And I'm a big part of this huge conference. I know a lot of people, and I was open about it, and people didn't know it. Of course, I didn't do a lot of Instagram stuff, and I think that's how we're connected. I don't even think we're connected on Facebook.
No, I don't use Facebook.
The hardest part is learning that people don't really care about you. They just care about looking like they care. It's the right
virtue
thing.
Signaling. Yeah. Just like all these virtue signals.
And I understand that it's not even intentional. A lot of it's subconscious. They're so busy with their life, they don't even think about stepping outside and for a second just saying, hey, or sharing this, all you just takes the share button and stuff. But with me, it was really difficult because I grew up, it's like this. I had a conversation with, this beautiful, beautiful black woman. She was actually a model for Maxim magazine. I was having a conversation with her and this other guy, and it was about race relations. And then she said, and I hate it when people say this, because I'm like, you know what? I don't know what it's like to be black. Do you know what? Black people don't know what it's like to be me. So, you can't say, well, you don't know, and assume the other person doesn't. And that was one of those situations. She said, you don't know what it's like to go to school and feel like nobody wants you. And I said, you're right. I don't know what it's like to feel like nobody wants me. I know what it's like to know people don't want me. I'm like, I was abandoned the only time I met my dad, my mother abandoned me when I was 8. I met my dad twice when I was a kid. One time when I was really young, I got to spend a little bit of time with him. I was thinking I was in the second grade or something, first or second grade. I met him again when I was 8 years old. I met him at the courthouse. He showed up to court just to tell the judge he doesn't want me. That's it.
Kind of like Angels in the movie Angels in the Outfield. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Yeah. And so, it's, and then, nobody showed up to my graduation, my high school graduation. No family showed up to my, my graduation from the academy. I was like, I've grown up knowing people don't want me, and so, so you can't assume that somebody else doesn't know what it's like just because they're not your race, because they didn't grow up the way you did. But I don't assume that I've had it worse than everybody. You might have had a much worse childhood than me. That's why I don't talk about my childhood, because I'm not going to talk about poor me, because I'm sure and it's all relative. I mean, I've seen people that their parents got a divorce and it completely destroyed them. They became suicidal, and to me, it's like, what? I don't even get that, but I don't know, because I've never had parents that were, together.
No, it's everybody's got a different experience, and people can't take themselves out of their own experiences and put themselves in, they're again, goes back to self-gratification. Like, I'm the victim. I'm a bigger victim than you. And I make fun of them on our show. Like, I have the running joke that I'm a trans-dimensional gender neutral unicorn. So I'm the ultimate victim. Not only am I trans, but I'm trans-dimensional. I'm gender neutral. So I could be anywhere on the spectrum, and I'm trans species because I'm a unicorn and I'm fairy tale. I'm a fairy. So on the victim scale, I'm way up there on the victim scale. So I can talk all things victim. Like, it's like the victim Olympics. And it's me trolling them, because it's like whoever is the biggest victim gets the last say and gets to be like, you don't understand because I'm a much bigger victim than you. No. Everybody had things in their life. Life is hard. Like, even me, I had a very blessed childhood. My parents are both still together. I love them both very dearly. And I'm very, very blessed in that aspect. And I had a great childhood. I didn't grow up rich or have tons of money or anything like that. But my parents were involved. My dad coached my baseball team, and they did everything that they possibly could to try to make my childhood the best they possibly can. It wasn't perfect. I had to do some really wild punishments throughout my life. As far as how my father ran the household. He's old school Italian. Old school Italian. You can only imagine.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm very, very, very blessed, and everybody has a thing in their lifetime where it was very difficult, or they were treated poorly, or terribly in many cases, or evil in many cases. And to sit here and just put a blanket statement on, like, oh, you don't understand what I've been through is unfortunate, because you have no idea what, especially if it's someone that you don't know. Yeah. Like, it's someone that you're just meeting. Like, you have no idea what this person's been through in life and what they faced. Like, I keep my buddy Justin, Cannabis and Combat, his sign on my behind me at all times, because I don't know if you know his story. You met him in San Antonio and Dallas as well.
Yeah.
But he took his life because of his childhood. He had a terrible upbringing, and you would never ever know, meeting Justin. Like, he was such a spotlight in the room. His smile, his energy just lit up the room. The way he carried himself, he's such a bigger than life human being. He was huge. I call him a refrigerator. And he took his own life because of being abused as a child and being prostituted and all these evil things that had happened to him. But you would never, ever, ever know. And to sit here and say that your life is tougher than his, like, how are you to say that when you don't know what he's been through? Yeah. And many people take that for granted. So, I think a great place to leave it off is exactly what it says, what God tells us: love your neighbor like you love yourself. Yeah. It starts with yourself. You need to present your best self. You need to give your best possible self that you can present to everybody else, not just for yourself, but for everybody else to enjoy, because you're a great human being. You bring a lot to the table. Everybody brings something to the table. And if you're not bringing your best self, not only you're doing a disservice to yourself, but you're doing a disservice to your loved ones around you that you truly care about. Forget everybody else that's looking in from the outside, but the ones that you truly care about. And that's how they can love you the best, if you're giving you your best self.
Yeah, exactly. My company's motto, and it's on my card and written on my shirt. It says,
I still think I have your card in here.
They were really, really neat cards. They're worth more.
Yeah, it's silver, right? It's got silver writing on it.
Yeah, they're worth more than my company is. But it's Bellator Itinerarium. It's Latin for Journey of the Warrior, and I chose that motto because we're all warriors. Every one of us are warriors of God. Remember, we are just raindrops from the ocean. God is the ocean. Yes. So we're all part of God. So even if you don't think you are, you're still a warrior of God. You're a soldier of God. And we are all in a different level because, like when you first started MMA, you probably were just a skinny little kid that probably could get his ass whooped.
Well, I wrestled my entire life since I was 4. So I was the kid that showed up to the MMA school, and I was skinny. But I was always in shape, and they didn't realize that I'd put a whooping on them. I actually lucked out.
You started early and started training.
I started at 4 years old. I started wrestling combat sports. Yeah.
And, but when you first start something, compared to somebody that's been doing it, you're
1,000%.
novice, you know.
Novice.
I mean, it's just we're all in a different level in our life. Even if you think you're on the same level, that doesn't. You're not, because you're not the same person. You don't have the same experiences.
1,000%. And even in MMA, like there's levels. Like I came into the small gyms and I was able to, you know, be the big fish and beat up everybody. But then I went to a big pond with all the pros. Yeah. And I was very quickly learned that I was the small fish. Yeah. And I was literally getting my ass kicked every day. It was brutal.
Yeah.
Like I was getting worked.
When I used to fight a lot, and I did MMA for a little bit, but not enough. I didn't compete at all. I just trained.
That's the best part.
Yeah. And
training is the part that sucks.
Because I was a cop and I wanted to know, because I did Taekwondo and stuff like that before, but that's
fake and gay.
Yeah. It's not practical. Taekwondo will help if you're fighting somebody that doesn't know how to fight.
And there's certain techniques that carry over, but the actual martial art is just nonsense. It's an art.
Rarely are you going to kick somebody, and Taekwondo is mostly kicking.
From distance.
Yeah, from a distance. Shit, I did it again. My brain just will.
So you wanted to learn about the martial art, about MMA, but you didn't compete.
Yeah, but I didn't compete. What was I going with? Well, but I would tell people, you know, I was talking about me fighting. I got into a lot of fights. And I got into the last fight I'd ever been in. I really regretted, because I never lost my temper in a fight. I was always very calm. Again, growing up the way I did, I didn't black out. In fact, when people would say, yeah, I get so mad, when I fight, I black out, and they brag about it, I was like, well, that makes you an idiot.
You're
you
done.
Have no control over yourself. Because I thought black.
I see red.
Yeah. That means you can't control yourself. Great.
I love those idiots. I love those idiots.
But I didn't. I was always calm. There was this guy, and I'm not going to go through the whole story, but he ended up thinking that he thought that I was messing around with his ex fiance. This guy was my size, but he was a meth monkey. He came up to a party and picked up a buddy of mine that was a cage fighter, but you know, cage fighters, you don't have to be really in shape, but he was big. And he picked him up and threw him. And then came after me, and he grabs my throat, and I'm still saying, dude, I don't want to fight you. You know, let's just, you know, I don't know you. I don't know her very well. And she was a butterface anyways. And so, you know, everything was nice, but
it wasn't worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I wasn't even, she was my boss. So I don't know why I keep on looking over there, like the camera's over there. But
I do this. I'm looking at you on the screen. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. And you were actually right there. But so he comes up to me, grabs my neck, and I tell him to let go. He won't do it. And then he squeezes, and then that's when it gets serious. So I armbar him to the ground, and he won't let go. So I just start punching him, and I start punching him, and I keep punching him. And his buddy comes over and kicks me in the back of the head, but I keep punching. And then finally he lets go. And they got a hold of that guy that kicked me in the back of the head, but he lets go. I get up. My buddy says, man, we probably should go. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I go to a fraternity brother's house. Fraternity brother looks at me up and down, calls a buddy, says, hey, dude, get over here. Hayes got his ass whooped. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? I had a little nick right here where his thumbnail got me. That was it. That was all I got. I was like, he's like, dude, look at you. I was covered from head to toe in blood. I didn't mean to, because as soon as he let go, I stopped. I didn't keep going. I quit as soon as it wasn't. People assume that I'm the way I am because of law enforcement. I was that way before. When the threat stopped, I stopped. So I was covered to head to toe. Come to find out, the guy had to have reconstructive surgery on his face. I smashed his face in. You know, I didn't mean to. I didn't want to. You know, I didn't want to hurt. I hate hurting people.
Should have let go. And I fucked around and found out.
Exactly. And I tell people all the time, I was like, I've never claimed to be a good fighter. I've never claimed to be a Billy Badass. All I've ever said is I can take a punch, because you're going to have to kill me.
That's me. They call it. So I trained with some of the baddest dudes in the planet, and they called me Little Bastard. The reason why they called me Little Bastard was because they were. They would literally just keep beating the fuck out of me, and I'd keep coming forward. They're like, yo, why won't you go down? Like, just stop. Like, I'm going to keep punching you if you don't stop coming forward. And I just keep coming. And they called me Little Bastard.
I was raised getting punched. In fact, I have to have reconstructive surgery on my septum here in I don't know, a few weeks. My wife has it scheduled. She does all that stuff. But he asked me, he's like, have you ever been hit in the face? They always assume because I was a cop. I never got hit in the face as a cop. I was smarter than that. I knew
most cops haven't been punched in the face, which they should.
There are a lot of cops that do need to be punched in the face. Don't get me wrong. But
no, not because they deserve it, but because when you're in a high adrenaline situation, you get punched in the face. You need to know how you're going to react. You need to know are you going to be one of those idiots who blacks out and sees red? Or are you going to be able to be a calm, cool, collected, composed person of the law? It's very important.
When my stepson got punched in his face, his dad was telling me, and I said, good. And me and him have a really good relationship. Me and his dad are actually friends. And right now, I think he's in Iraq. He's in the military. But
God bless him.
I told him, I said, good. And he said, that was my reaction too. I was like, we both think every boy needs to know what it's like to get punched in the face, because that's when you know when your medal is what it is. And so it's
really not that bad.
No, it's not as bad as some people act like it is when they get punched in the face. They start bleeding, all of a sudden the fight's over. And I'm like, what? But
even if it really doesn't hurt that bad, guys.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it might water your eyes and stuff. You may have black eyes, but it's not.
If you get punched in the nose, your eyes are going to water up. It's like you blow your nose too hard, your eyes start watering.
Yeah. And so I learned from a young age. I remember being 7 years old. My mother was now dating a guy that she ended up abandoning me for. And he was, of course, beating on her. And I jumped up there. I'm 7 years old. I jump on the couch with her and to stop him from hitting her. And he punched me in the face. And of course, I don't remember it ever even affecting me then. But I'm like, if I can,
your adrenaline's going. It's different it's much different when your adrenaline's going.
I say, if I can take a punch from a 35-year-old when I'm 7, I was like, there's nobody that can beat me. Nobody can kill me. My childhood taught me that my body may be all jacked up, and it is. I mean, I've had 5 back surgeries, left arm reconstruction. I'm supposed to have neck surgery. I mean, my hand is disformed because I punched a wall because I was blindfolded in my fraternity and I was trying to hit somebody in the face. I had a really stupid fraternity. Not any gay crap. We were, they mixed no-dose and alcohol inside this nasty concoction and was making us all take drinks of it. And it nearly killed me. Cause now I'm drunk and my heart rate's going like this. But I'd learned all these lessons, and that was my warrior story. That's what taught me to be who I am. But I don't expect somebody who's had perfect parents who were pacifists and everything to, I may lack respect for people that are cowards and stuff. But I understand when they're weak. Cowardice, I don't understand, because that, it's like, if you truly love something, love is easy to define. I don't know why people always say it's hard to define love. No, it's not. Love is sacrifice. Simply, no matter which way you draw it, love is sacrifice. How much do you love?
Compromise? Yeah.
How much do you love? Well, compromise is sacrifice. You're sacrificing what you want to give them what they want. And how much do you love? How much are you willing to sacrifice? And also loving yourself. You got to take that into play, but it's all about sacrifice, and that's how you know how much you love. That's why I've always said, I know I'm probably one of the most unlovable people I know, but that's fine. I don't need people to love me. Like, I don't need Christians to agree with me. They think they're going to scare me out of hell. I'm like, come on. I was like, again, journey of the warrior. I've been on this path for a very long time. Are you going to go to a salty dog and tell him that, man, you might end up going to war, when you've never been to war yourself, but he has? No. And that's what a lot of people try to do to me. It's like, listen, I'm that salty dog. I'm that guy that's been to war. I've been to hell. I grew up in hell. I've danced with the devil a few times. You're not going to scare me out of heaven or out of hell. One, I've done research on hell, and so that's a totally another conversation. I've done a couple of things kind of touching on it and stuff, but but still, who cares? I was like, let's say I didn't believe in hell. I tick a lot of Christians off because when I'll ask questions, they will ask me what I believe, and I won't tell them. And they're like, well, I can't tell you what I think if I don't know what you believe. I was like, why does it matter what I believe? My belief should have nothing to do with your thoughts or your thoughts about me. I was like, I'm asking a question, answer the question. And so I don't tell people whether I believe in hell, whether I don't believe in hell, whether I believe Jesus is God, whether I don't believe he's God. That doesn't matter. I'm asking questions because I want you to ask yourself these questions and you come up with the answer. I asked the other day, what's the oldest a script that they've used for the New Testament? Nobody gave me an answer. Somebody said they said the name of the alphabet they used. I'm like, but that's not the same thing. I'm asking, what is the oldest script? One guy said, well, I said, well, I was told Paul wrote 2/3 of the Bible, but the oldest script that I have found, unless somebody proves to me wrong, I have found it was written like 150 to 250 AD, around that time. Well, Paul died around 61, 64 AD. That seems strange. He wrote 2/3 of the Bible of the New Testament, and then it was written in small little fragments. It wasn't even a complete thing. I was like, I'm not saying,
and rewritten multiple times.
And then you should watch my episode. It's an hour. It's about 45 minutes to an hour long. I have it split up into 3 sections, so it's easy to digest. But she's an Aramaic Christian minister. Her family is from that area, so they know the culture. Well, she said the problem with a lot of things is the Italians don't know anything about that, the Near East. They didn't know about, Jesus's culture, and neither did the English. They didn't know anything about Jesus' culture, but they all knew that they didn't like these people. Emperor Constantine couldn't stand the Jews. Why do you think that they celebrate Passover on Easter, which happens to be a pagan holiday? Emperor Constantine did that.
Same with Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. They were at war with pagans, and Christians were always at war. So let's combine them so we can rule them all. But I tell people this. I'm like, listen, and she told me, she's like, there's over 84,000 different misinterpretations that people got because they didn't understand the culture. Like if you said in my name, and people use that a lot talking about Jesus when he says in my name, they're like, that's how he's saying he was God. She said in my name in that culture. And that means that it's still the same way here now. She said, if you were to travel over there right now, it would look like it did 2,000 years ago. They don't change. Like Muslims, Muslims are more, are closer to their Quran than Christians are to the Bible.
Without a doubt. You could see that.
Yeah.
Look at how the Prophet Muhammad is treated culturally throughout the world, and look at how Jesus Christ is treated culturally throughout the world. They constantly mock Jesus, and they literally, you cannot even put a picture of Muhammad on TV.
Yeah. But if you think about it, if you look at other, like the Buddhists and the yogis and stuff, they elevate Jesus. They have a lot of respect for him. Because of his lessons and what he's taught. And from what I've studied, now Christians will argue this, but none of them has actually researched it that I've spoken with, before he was 30, because as you know, the Bible only basically drops him off at 12, picks him back up at 30. Well, that age, according to there is documentation that he actually traveled to India and started learning.
I've heard this story. Yeah.
And they have documentation that says he was there and all this other stuff. But again, I don't tell Christians that they're wrong about what they're believing. But what I am saying is you got to understand, just because you blindly have faith in all this doesn't mean that somebody else has to have that same blind faith. They see it. They're like, well, I see something different. You can't say, oh, well, you're going to hell because you see it differently than me. That's wrong. You may think it. Go ahead, think I'm going to hell. That's fine. It's not going to hurt my feelings, but I believe these things And that's why I don't tell people my beliefs, because I'm trying to have a social platform. And if I get everybody to, stop listening to me, then how is anybody going to learn? Because I'm trying to get people that normally wouldn't hear something that somebody else said. You're not going to hear a Christian listen to an Aramaic Christian minister.
No.
But on my show, if they're used to watching my show, they might actually listen and hear somebody else's beliefs.
And that's important.
Yeah. And I said this one time, like, I'm pro-life, and you're probably pro-life too. I don't know. But let's assume you're very pro-life. And you believe that that the pro-choice people are horrible people, right? And so I tell you, you see me have a podcast with this girl. She actually has an abortion, and she's talking to me about this abortion. She says, well, when I and remember, you are completely against pro-choice people. You think they are the devil incarnate. So I'm talking,
which is a lot of pro-choice people, or pro-life people.
Exactly. So I talked to a good friend of mine who's very pro-life, and he believed that. I said, so I'm talking to her, and she tells me that she was married to this guy that was a narcissist, that also separated her from her family and her friends. She was spent years away from anybody. She had no contact with the outside world at all. She wasn't even allowed to leave the house hardly, just to go run her errands. And then she had to keep checking in with him, very controlling. Well, she ends up pregnant. Well, she's beat every day. She's always getting beat, and she knows that he's not going to stop beating her because she's pregnant. So that baby is going to either end up with some birth defects, is going to end up dying anyway.
Just because of the stress that she's under. Yeah.
The stress, or the baby's going to come out. And even if the baby's perfectly normal, or semi-normal like me, that she's the child is now going to have to live under the same hell, and she's going to now have to not only worry about her, but she's going to have to worry about her child. That her child's not going to end up dying or having to see this and deal with this. So she decides to get an abortion because she sees no other way out. Because again, she had nowhere to go. She had nothing. No help, nothing.
Yeah, every circumstance is completely different.
So doesn't it? Even if you're so pro-life, doesn't it, at least, even if you don't change your mind, but do you at least have empathy for her? You feel sorry for her? Mm-hmm. I mean, you'd have to be a monster not to. That's the thing. And if you have empathy, that is that little crevice that allows you to love somebody that you normally wouldn't have loved. You thought she was a monster before. Now she's not a monster. You just disagree with her.
Yeah, absolutely. I disagree with her decision. I always think that there's a way to, save the kid's life without a doubt.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can understand the situation and the problem. And your point is very well heard. But the problem with the whole pro-life issue and using that empathy, because that's what they do, is they take that little bit of empathy that we have for those situations, and then they try to put a blanket statement on it and say, oh no, see, like, these are the situations, this is why we need to have abortion legal, because of these situations, when in reality they're less than 1% of those situations, like, getting raped and having to have a kid. Like, I can have, like, not only did you get raped and have to go through that traumatic experience, but now you have to look at this child that you gave birth to as a result of the rape. Like, I could not even imagine the thought process of that. Like, just it's horrifying. But those are such few and far between situations that you cannot use those situations to justify why abortion should be legal.
They don't tell you, because they don't want to tell you, that most places that abortion is outlawed, they allow exigent circumstances such as rape, as incest, saving the life of the mother. They allow that. So their argument is kind of a moot point because it doesn't hold water. It's kind of like getting mad at the Roe versus Wade. They're like, oh, they're allowing. Roe versus Wade did not allow say abortion was bad. It didn't say that at all. Nope. All it said was, it's not our business. This is
the federal government hasn't. Yeah.
And that's all it said. So if you want to get an abortion, go to California. Simple.
Yep. Go to New York.
Yeah. There are states that are trying to make it, which they can't, but they're trying to say that you can't go to a different state and get an abortion. it's not, it wouldn't fly because it's unconstitutional.
Yeah, every state has their own laws, and we're a constitutional republic. It's not like you're going to a foreign country. You're still in our country, and you're not breaking any federal.
When I was got married to just got married a year before this. We're having a custody battle with this is before me and my stepson's dad got along at all. And we were battling because we had to get permission from him to move from Arkansas to Oklahoma. And I found out before I got married with my wife that my second divorce didn't go through. I didn't know that. So just a couple of months before we got married, my divorce got finalized. Well, in Oklahoma, you can't get married again for another 6 months. But in Arkansas, it's like 30 days. It's not that big of a deal. Well, but we got married in Arkansas. We had
because of that.
Yeah, that exactly. And his attorney, which is a complete idiot, because he tried using my Facebook post against me because I had a Facebook post that said it was something stupid. It had me taking pictures, and everybody's doing them trends. So I was making fun of trends. And I took a picture of me while I was on the shitter saying pooping pics. I said hashtag pooping pics. And so I posted that, it was just something stupid. And a
little troll post.
Yeah. And he tried using that against me, and I laughed at it in court. And so did everybody else, because he said, "Is this you?" I was like, "Yeah, it's funny." He said, "Why'd you post this?" I was like, "Cause it's funny." I have a sense of humor.
It's a joke.
Yeah. Cause it's a joke. And then he tried using the marriage. He said, "You're not actually married because you were actually, according to Oklahoma state law, you can't get married for another 6 months, but you did." I was like, "But we got married here in Arkansas." And he said, "Well, what would you do if you weren't married?" I said, it would be easy. We would just go downstairs and get married now, because this was a year later." I was like, "I don't care." And then, of course, my attorney finally spoke up. Arkansas, I realize all the attorneys are in bed with each other.
Oh yeah, they're all best buddies.
Yeah, it's just I still to this day don't think that a court-appointed attorney should be working for the prosecutor's attorney either. They shouldn't be working for the same boss. That's unfair. That's why people that have court-appointed attorneys usually get screwed. But my attorney, of course, finally spoke up and said, "You can't hold." No, actually, it was the judge that said it. He said, "You can't hold another state's law against them. We're in Arkansas." So it didn't matter. But
it's a moot point.
Yeah, but people will try to do that thinking that nobody will say something.
Well, that's what they always do.
Yeah.
They don't think that they're going to get called out on the bullshit. It's a typical tactic that they always use.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Joshua, it's been like what, 5 hours?
Yeah. Because we got on at 1
at 11 in my time. So
it's 5:42 here. So it's been,
So I got to get a lot of stuff done. I got to start wrapping up. It's been a blast. I can't wait to see you in Vegas in a couple weeks. Come and hang out. We'll have a good time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're excited because we were working our asses off to try to figure out how we could go there, and we're going to make it. So.
Oh, I'm excited. I can't wait to see you guys. Can't wait to meet the puppy.
Yeah, I'll see you in 2 weeks, I think, something like that.
2 weeks, yeah. A couple weeks from now, yeah. Absolutely.
We'll
look forward to it.
Driving up there. So we'll have a booth selling my shirts and everything.
Nice.
But listen, I want you to send the information to me also, but go ahead. Could you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you? Because, you're from We the People Radio, which is, it's an awesome program. It's, if you like unfiltered commentary and actually hearing whether you agree or don't agree, at least you get sourced information of why you believe what you believe, and you talk to a lot of different people. But you get people good.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Absolutely. Thank you. You can get us on Instagram as our main social media, We the People Radio, with periods in between each word, or on Twitter, WPRUSA17. But we're live every Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. On Rumble, just search We the People Radio on Rumble. You'll find us. We're permanently banned from YouTube. I get the Alex Jones treatment. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts if you just want audio, but that's not the live version. That's the recording of the live. So if you ever want to come and hang out in the chat and gangbang on the government, like we like to say, with us, you're more than welcome. We'd love to have you. 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We're actually not live this Friday. I don't know when this is airing, but we're doing a special Sunday episode this week, 3 p.m. Eastern. So come and hang out, and it'll be a good time. We appreciate you, Josh. Thanks for having me on.
Hey guys, I want to personally thank everyone for liking and sharing my videos. If you want to continue to see my content, all you got to do is press that subscribe button, and I'll notify you as soon as a new video comes out. I don't get paid for any of this. So if you want to buy some of my merch, like my shirts, like Jesus is a Badass or my Don't Be a Dick shirt, you can easily go to my merch store, which is at sogtv.org, which I will have it in the description at every video. So push that, go buy yourself a shirt. I appreciate it. Have a blessed day, and I will see you at the next episode. Thank you.